the next thing we would need to do is to set up our middlewares, and I really like to separate all of this logic as much as possible. So I can have one that says go, and this would allow me to define, let's say, an authentication middleware. Um, and of course, it could go like this. There's not so much about it. So it's going to be a function. I can call it as middleware. So it takes nothing and it returns the handle from in, and that's mostly it. So we return a func, and this is thank you. So it returns a function that accepts a gene pointer to a gene context, and of course it returns a function that accepts a pointer to a gene context. That's mostly what the handler function is. So if you also pay attention, you see that this signature is also basically like what our handlers signature for handlers. So handlers themselves can also be handler fonts, if you think of it in this context, basically. And so this is where let's say part of what we have to do is to extract the token from the headers or something, and this is where we because I don't like to use comptx, I like to use C. So this is where we extract the token from the header. Maybe we decide to call it authorization, which is of course the concept that everyone uses, and we can now have our access token. Would be, I don't know, we'll say split our token, and split our token, and like this and better, and then we can just maybe do some checks, and we say if access token is actually an empty string, or I don't know, say something like if access token is if nothing happens, or if it's just an empty string that was actually supplied from the beginning. So we could actually say if access token is equal to token, C equals to are the same. So if this is the case, this of course we just want to, I don't want to split, I want to actually trim the prefix, and this is what I want to do. I don't want to split. So I say if this is the case, so basically either that you did not provide an authorization token in the header, or what you provide is malformed. So if that is the case, we simply abort and we return to the user a JSON, and here we can of course maybe return HTTP status unauthorized, and we can maybe add additional information there over here. Let's say something like error, and here we can say invalid malformed token. Whatever you would want to write, and of course we return to the client immediately. But if actually the token is provided, so this is now where you could, I don't know, normally what I could do is to basically just add this token to the context and let any endpoint call that would be authenticated actually decide what they want to do with this token. So if you have like already predefined logic on how to validate your token, you can already do that in here. Otherwise, normally I just, like I said, leave that for the consumer or the person implementing this middleware, or the API that would use this middleware to actually decide what he wants to do with this. And yeah, that's it. This is our authentication middleware basically. So the next thing I would, of course, I think we mostly do is also like to define a calls middleware. So I could have one here called go, package middleware, and as we did for the other one, so I can call this calls middleware. So like before, it's accepts nothing and it returns the handler func. And as usual, of course, it has to return back to a user. The function accepts a pointer to gene context and returns. It should return a function that accepts a pointer to gene context. That's really it. That's really what we want. So now what we can actually do is to maybe do some modifications to the header of what we got. So we could do writer header. So we set some information. So here we would want to do something like access. It should only be all caps. We would see access control allow origin, and this is where you specify, let's say for now, localhost. And what else would I want to? I'm just going to copy this and maybe use this to set access control and allow credentials. So this is if I would like to also accept token from. I would like to also consume token that you provide, of course. Let's say if you're using HTTP only cookie, for example, that could also work here. And here again, and add access control allow headers. And here I would do something like content type. So I would like to accept content type. I would like to accept content length. What do I want to accept? Maybe let's say accept encoding. I think that should be it. And the next thing I would like to also accept to define is methods. So in here I will define post, put, delete, patch maybe, options, of course, for pre-flight requests. I think that should be fine. And what we can also already do is to handle, if we have pre-flight, we don't want to actually do anything, we want to simply return that to the user, to the client. So we'll say if request.method, if it's options, then what we need to do, of course, is we abort the request. And I want to add some status, so not just abort. So I would like to return to the user maybe HTTP, or maybe username for now 204. Actually, this is what I need to return, but I will fix status codes later anyways. So if it's a pre-flight, I'm just going to abort the request with 204. Let's return that to the user. Other than that, of course, we pass it on to the next consumer, and that's it. That's it for our. That's it basically for our calls middleware. And of course, if, for example, if I have to, let's say, consume, if I have to connect to databases, it could be Postgres or MySQL. It could even be like document DBs, like let's say MongoDB or DynamoDB. I could also define middlewares and stuff like this. Actually, what we can do is to, let's say, we have assuming we would be needing to connect to Postgres database. What we can also do is to define a Postgres middleware, and we like before call this Postgres middleware. Alright, before, of course, it accepts nothing and returns the handler func. And like before, it should return a func like we had in the past. Again, I want this to just be C. And now this is actually where you establish a connection to your database. So for this example, we could actually say something like, let's say we have a connection string. I can call it here. This could be some connection string. What I will also want to show you is how to actually consume, or how to, let's say if you have environment variables that you would want to set in your application. I can also show you how I read these environment variables and then of course mash them into a struct and then have them again. I could also even maybe define a middleware for that and then pass this around wherever I need to consume this. That's so much you can actually do. So let's say I have my connection string, and let's try to connect to the Postgres database. So let's say driver would be of course Postgres, and we pass our connection string. And actually, I don't think that's all I need. So of course I need to, unless I need to add the driver, I think github.com lib, and I might need to tidy to install the missing packages. And here I can of course handle my error if error is not new. Let's say if this error is not real, of course we want to, it has to be a permanent. It's a really huge problem if we cannot connect to database and we want to use it, so of course there is really no need to continue from here. But for now we just panic, but that should not work. It should be fixed if we ever run into such problem. So now I don't understand why the install is taking so much time. Have I lost connection? Try that one more time. Oh, I think I misspelled this GitHub. Oh, sorry. So let's try that one more time. And yeah, it's installed. So we have our DB, and here you could, I don't know, do whatever. Let's just say we want to ping the DB. We can do something like ping. No. Error. And we handle our error. This is not really necessary anyways, but yeah. So here we of course we could add our error, and so no new variables. Yeah, so we can actually call this ping error like this, and we panic it. This error of course is relating to shadowing, which is happening because I'm creating a new variable. I'm actually creating no new variable because there's already a variable within this scope with the same name as error. I mean, one thing you can do, of course, if you want to use the same name, actually, is to define an error here, and basically you can continue that all the way. But yeah, let's leave it as this. This is fine. And now maybe you do some setup. I don't know. I can set maximum open connections. I don't know, let's say 400, and we could set connection max lifetime, and we could say, let's say hour. That. And so now of course what we need to do is to put this in a context. So we set this and we give it a name, so we can actually call it Postgres client, and it will be our DB. So the idea now would be, if there are certain endpoints, let's say if we group our endpoints in the end, and it turns out that they would need to make query to the Postgres database, for example, we can simply just pass this middleware to those endpoints, and they can actually get this client out of the gene context and consume them as necessary, as required. And I can also show you, like in the same vein, you can also have, say, SQL, Go, really, that's nothing so different from what we did before. So we can call it SQL, the where, and like it's usually doesn't take anything, and we return the gene handler, handler func, and again it returns a signature, and again I always like to name this as C and not as context. I don't see the need to type so much. And basically it's it. So you define your connection here, and then you set it in the context like we did here. That's actually how this works. That should be fine. And one more thing I would probably want to do is to show you how I consume is to show you how I consume my environment variables. And to do that, I can quickly just show you a couple of things. So the first thing we might want to do is to define a helper function. So here I could have a file config.go. Here I can define a func, so plus package helpers, and then I define a function. I can just load config, and I provide a path. The path of course should be a string, and what it would return would be two things actually. But for now what I would need to do is actually define what's the signature of what I want return should look like. And to do that, I would maybe go into my types and create a new folder, and I can call this config. And inside of it, I can create a file called app config.go package config. So what I would like to do here is basically to define a struct that would represent the environment variables I would like to pass around in this application. So I could, since we are already talking about using Postgres, so we could say something like Postgres DB name, for example, to be a string. Let's say again. So Postgres user string. That's what the string, something like this, and we can of course have the same for SQL. For of course there are a couple of things we still need to do. So set for Postgres. So set Postgres DB port. This would be an int. It's normally I think it's 5433 if I'm not mistaken. And I think the last thing we might need to set for Postgres would be the SSL mode. So I can also just send here SSL mode. Of course, the string is normally required actually. And then let's say we have other things here. I don't know. We want set cookies, for example, and set cookie domain be a string. Now this is actually where we could define our port origin, which will be a string as well. And so we're really talking about cookie. We can decide if we want to use HTTP only cookie, and this would be a bool. Anything else? So now let's define some for SQL. So let's go DB name. So SQL DB user be a string SQL password will be a string as well. And what else? SQL of course, like int port, which would be an int. And yeah, it's just also SSL mode. Yeah, so it should look like this, and of course we need to define. So for this, we'd actually be using the library Viper. If you're not familiar with it, I can also just put it here in the README. So we have Viper, and so let's continue. So we would need a way to actually get this out when we want to consume them, and you can just copy this. I'll do this with them actually. Goes in here, and finally this goes in here, and this should be SSL mode, and let's mix it up. So port should be in here. So fine, I think this is looking okay. And the next thing, of course, I would like to do is, let's assume we have a file called app.conv. Now I'd like to copy this, put it in here, format those, and provide some value like this. So let's copy this one. Paste, because this is where you now provide these values. But yeah, you get what I'm trying to do here. So this would be our env file that we parse, and then we map the content to our struct using the library file. So for Postgres port, I think it's normally 5433. I've forgotten what it is for SQL, but yeah, you can also, of course, always fill this ones in. So we have our env file, and now, of course, what we need to do is in this our helper function, the one we started setting up here. What we want to do is to actually say when we call this load config function and provide a path, it's going to be able to read this env file if we are on debug mode, which means if we are running the application locally, it should be able to read this file, return the content for us, and then continue the process. So here it should be able to return config, and it returns this or returns an error. So I think I mixed in here. So this is what we want it to be. This is actually where we could do something like if we would like to set an environment variable, of course, and you know what? Let's also come back here while we're at it. Now it's becoming like a chain reaction. I want to have one that says app and maybe mode. This is where I could say set this maybe debug now, and in here I would like to read that value and then decide if we are in the release mode or in the debug mode. And maybe what I could also do is, right away, I could create a file here called env go. This is where I would like to define the function that will help me to get this environment variables. So first, I can call this gets env, and it will always take a key and the default value in both kind of strings. This will help us to return a string attribute that's in our env file. So we can say if value exists, and we use our OS lookup, and OS look. Come on, what is going on? What is wrong with you? Or I can say if value exists, OS lookup env, and I provide the key, and I check if it actually exists. So if it exists, of course I return the value, otherwise I otherwise I return the default value. So if you, for example, you want to get app mode, if it is set, we get it. If not, then we simply return the default that we provide. So here we can say helpers, but let's move. Now we define app mode, and of course we need to also provide a default one, and we can always maybe call this debug. This is complaining, but I will fix you later. So say if this is, let's say if we are in release mode. So in release mode, of course, we would expect that you have all these variables, of course, set in. So I would not be expecting you to actually use an env file when you're in production. I would only expect you to use this when you're working locally. So could not import this missing. So we can go to helpers. Oh, of course, sorry. I'm already in helpers and I don't need to do this anymore. We are within the package. My PC is really slow today, so this should be fine. So in this case, like I said, I'm expecting that you have this already set up. Let's say you're working with Docker, this could have been already piped in when either maybe you're building, or like also this can also be already injected. Let's say if you have a CI/CD pipeline set up, but I would not expect you to be using an env file when you're in release mode. So that's really the point I'm trying to make. So here we return our config, and now we set all the attributes. So I'm just gonna, this is a lot of code to write, but I'm probably just gonna copy this and bring them over here. No, I just don't put it here actually. So maybe make them like this, and then I'll come back to you later. This I can actually make also maybe 543 2. I know this is for Postgres, but yeah, of course, yeah. So put this one in here, put this one in here. Also need one for the way to how to extract our Boolean environment variables. We'll get to that in a minute. So I'll put this guys over here, put this one over here, and put this over here. And of course, the port would complain because we cannot support whatever. And so if we have this, and now all we need to do is we simply C and new. But before that, of course, I would want to read this as well. So I'll need to define also a function here that will help me to get Boolean environment variables. So I can define one as get env bool. So it's going to take a name, which will be a string, of course, and it should return a bool. That's it. And so I can call this value, and then we try to get what was passed. So we use a function we have as above, and we apply, of course, apply this name here, and maybe provide an empty string. All we're trying to do is to pass this value. So let's say if it's called conv has bool, we provide our value. Maybe I call this result. So if the error error is not equal to nil, return 1 second. So if error is not nil, we return the result that was passed. Otherwise, we return here. Also, we could just maybe make our default the default, something like this. And then here we use our get inverse bool, and we get this guy. And that's what we need to do. So now we need to change all of this to again something like this. So I'll copy this one more time. Find all of this guy actually. No, I want something like this. So there you all are, and I'll replace you with this. Okay. And yeah, and now I can just copy these guys and put them in here. And it needs a default, which I should have done also, but it's okay. Run the default. I can also I can also define an m variable to read, but yeah, you get what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I will leave that for you to also do, and I will also in the end provide this repo, so you can always of course come back to this to reference what you have in here. So we are really just providing empty strings as defaults. So if those values are not set, you will get an empty string back for all of them actually. So mind you, this is only for the scenario when we run our code in production. So in this case, we are expecting that you already have these values set, and we just read it from there. We don't expect that you would again have an EMV file actually in production. That's really bad. And so now we have defined what we need to do if we are in release mode. So if we are not in release mode, this is actually where we now use Viper, and we actually need to install Viper. So I will see if I get some help here. So add config path, provide the path. So I'm not helped, unfortunately. So I'm just going to copy the URL and then put it in here, and we'll do mod tidy, and then we should install Viper for us so we can continue. Okay, so we have Viper installed. So add config path. So we add. So this would be the path to our env file. And again, like I said, this would only be the case when we are working locally. So we set the config name. So it's called app. And we set config type. We set this env, so in the end it's going to read app at env. And we say Viper with automatic env. And now, of course, we try to actually do the actual reading. And we'll say if error also read in config, this one, this is an error. Now we need to decide what happens at this point if we cannot read our environment variable. Maybe we just return to the user, this guy. and return an error. And if we are able to get past this, of course, we can now try to marshal our our JSON, or our config into our object. So here I can actually say something like config, which is a config, and here so we do it should be Marshall, I think, and we pass a reference to G, and of course we check error. This is not equal to nil. We return this guy and of course the error. And if everything went smoothly, now we can return our config and nil. And just to avoid shadowing, I can also call this read error, just to finish it over this. And I can call this marshal error or marshal error, and put it again, and this should be fine now. So now we can go back to defining the middleware middleware more or less that we would use to, let's say, to handle this for any API that might be needing to, let's say if we have APIs that would have to consume something from the Postgres, and we needed to first of course read this from the config file and then pass them, then of course we can define a middleware for this and then pass that to those APIs. So for this config.go page middleware, and as usual signature has not changed, so config middleware, it takes nothing, and it returns gin and func. Again, it returns a function that accepts a gin context, and as usual. So now we can say our config, we'll actually use the function we just find, and this will be in our helpers, that's load config, and we expect you to be, for now, to be in the current directory where we are. And say if this error is not equal to nil. So what I'm assuming here is if you expect to read the config file and no config file is found, I'm guessing there is really no need to proceed. So I'm just going to abort, and of course you can again decide on your own how you want to handle that. And so here I'm going to abort with internal server error, status internal server error, and I provide more information to the user, to the client. Error, I'm providing this error, and of course I'm returning. And but if everything goes as well, again I'm going to set this in the context header, and I can call this app config, and that's it. So what we've done in this section is we tried as much as we can, also as fast as possible, to define most of the middlewares that would be needing when we're trying to set up a project. Again, I cannot go through everything, but I'm trying to give you like a high level overview, but again also trying to give it as much flesh as possible for you to understand how I would actually structure this if I needed to do this in a project. And then we also try to give structure to our code. We define some helper functions, We defined, we read from an env file, we have marshaled this to the struct, and then we of course have this also included in our middlewares. In the next section, we would again move over to APIs, and we start to put all of this together. And I hope to see you again in the next section. So let's jump right in and waste no much fun time. Thank you.